Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, for inwardly they are ravening wolves. Jesus is the shepherd who protects you from those wolves. And I am his dog, the sheepdog that get the lambs back on track when they stray off the path. And some of you have strayed, haven't you?
Mama, are you evil? Reverend says he's here to take you back where he came from.
I know you're there, and I know you can hear me. You may have no tongue, but there is nothing wrong with your ears. Do you know why I'm here? I'm here to punish you.
Why do you let him do this?
It's a sin.
I love him!
You do not. It is lust.
He ain't never gonna stop, is he?
I've seen your mother. She's the kind of person that turns the other cheek. Are you like her?
Never leave your loved ones alone. You should know that by now.
Hello, everybody. That looks like a barrel of laughs, doesn't it?
Brimstone, man, I loved it. I thought it was one of the coolest neo-westerns I think I've ever seen. Like, I've never seen a neo-western like this that is really focused on the sort of brutality of the culture at that time, which you represent wholeheartedly.
Well, as best I can and as best we can. I mean, the interesting thing is it is a Western, I suppose, but it's made by a Dutch filmmaker in Martin Koolhoven, and he has a very unrelenting and passionate kind of style. Not to suggest that we wouldn't find that in a more traditional American Western, but on some level it's not unlike when we did The Proposition, which also is a Western, except it's set in Australia and it's made by John Hillcoat and written by Nick Cave. And so there's a sort of a ruthless brutality about European filmmakers and Australian filmmakers, and that I think really comes through. And clearly this, you know, in Brimstone has an incredible sensitivity, but it also the brutality and the violence and the hideousness of that life, particularly that Dakota Fanning's character is forced into, is really there on the screen.
It's so fascinating to think about the sort of European or Australian idea of the Western, because the genre in America has in many ways so often represented a kind of exceptionalism that we as Americans sort of absolutely love for some reason. We love stories about American exceptionalism, and as violent as the Western can get, they always are sort of representative of that. But from the European and Australian perspective, it's much more bleak.
Yeah, you're right. It's very bleak. I mean, I think the reality is if you were trying to live on the land wherever you are, I mean, and you're at a loss, you're really trying to make it on your own, you're trying to face adversity, or you're facing adversity, I think a lot of your experience would be very bleak. Yeah.
How did Martin Koolhoven pitch the story to you?
Well, it came via my agent first. I got the script and we were told that Martin was interested in me for the role, and I read it. And as soon as I read it, I was really taken by it. I just thought that the journey that the main character, in Dakota's character, experiences was so well realised there on the page, and it just felt so harrowing and felt so realistic that I was completely taken by it. And then obviously my character, who is her father essentially, who really is, I won't sort of go into exactly why he's after her, but she escapes from him, you know, and she has to find a new life for herself. The way in which that dynamic existed on the page, it felt so palpable and so powerful, I think, because, you know, as anybody, we want our parents to love us, and we want to love our parents, and we want to feel safe with them.
Not this guy.
Not this guy. No, and so you really feel for her. And when I sat down with Martin, I just wanted to make sure that I understood it the way he intended it. Obviously, the film's broken up in different chapters. I was a little confused about what happens in one of the chapters. I won't give that away now. But it was pretty clear to me what kind of film he wanted to make.
Now, when you're playing a character like this, there are many different directions that you can go in, and you sort of get a chance to sort of be big and be
Are
villainous.
there many different directions? I felt like there was only one direction I could...
Really?
Well, I mean...
At a certain point, I feel like you go and you go for it, and then you're kind of like, am I going too big, or where is the middle point? I mean, you handle it beautifully, but I'd imagine that, like, on the page, you must be reading that and be like, well, I don't want to go that. I don't know how...
Well, I think the difficult thing is, I mean, the character I play he's either psychopathic or he's borderline. He's really not a well man, and the complex thing when you play any character is, I think, to try and express all sides of that character. I mean, not every story should delve into every aspect of the characters you play, but you should at least feel that when you're watching a character, they're a three-dimensional human being. And I think the challenge for me in this was to make him three-dimensional and not just make him RoboCop, you know, not just make him this unstoppable beast of a man who had no sense of humanity whatsoever. So I think that was the challenge, and he is, I mean, he's a preacher. He's taken not only his whole family but his community out of the Netherlands, and they've set up in America in the 1800s. And he's leading the way. He's a real alpha kind of male, I suppose, and he's instructing that everybody in the town now speak this new language of English. So he's a very dominant kind of character. And he's giving sermons to these local townsfolk. And so he really has a sort of an ego that's just getting more and more out of control. And
he has certain predilections, if you will, outside of just being psychopathic, that he uses religion to justify.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the interesting aspects of the story for me as well, is that he takes his religious fervour and as you say, justifies his behaviour. And, you know, that's a problem that we witness continually with religion in the world today. I have nothing against religion at all. I think if it's right for somebody and it helps them get through their day, then fantastic. What a wonderful tool, or what a wonderful belief that people have. But for some people, they'll use it, and I mean, it's like the internet, you know. It can be used for good and it can be used for evil as well, so...
And I think this movie, in many ways, is about exploitation, and is about specifically the exploitation of women and the sort of societal justifications for that at this time. And I think it, you know, whether meaning to or not, because our America and our society was sort of founded in many ways like this, it runs parallel, if you want to think about it that way, to now, especially when you're talking about religious justification.
Yeah, I mean...
Economic justification as well.
Yeah, I mean, as we know, you know, women have been mistreated not just in this country but in every country for you know, centuries. And I think it was funny because I don't know where it was, if I read it in a review or something, talked about this film being misogynist, and I thought it's the opposite of that. This is an opportunity to actually look at misogyny and the negative effects of it, clearly. And
it may be brutal, but at no point should you mistake it as misogyny. It's definitely about misogyny.
It's about misogyny, but it's not. I don't think the film itself is misogynistic.
No, in many ways, it's about sort of the ways that that people have tried to justify misogyny.
Absolutely, and the ownership that I think men feel they have over women. You know, this, and I. You know, it's a long, complex kind of psychology that you could delve into, but this whole idea that men feel they need to have power over women, like, where does that come from? Why does that exist? Why do men feel so powerless that they therefore think they have to find power over women? And this is something that, as you point out, continues to this day. I mean, we saw, you know, a women's march just yesterday. So
I happen to be watching this movie during the Women's March.
Perfect. Yes, is this the kind of thing they want to show at a women's march?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I'm curious, you talk about, you know, not wanting him to come off as one-dimensional, and I think one of the ways that you do that is sort of show very subtly the cracks in his ego, the cracks in his beliefs at times. You get to see him almost be comical in a way when he's tripped up, which is the sort of perfect way to show how fallible an egotist is, a psychotic egotist is.
Absolutely. And funnily enough, in saying that I wanted to play the character as a three-dimensional character, the reality is he operates as a one-dimensional creature. You know, he thinks he can get away with functioning in this very singular way. And he can't, he can't, and nobody can in the world. They think they can, and they try to, and the reality is they come undone. And so to show where somebody comes undone, to look at the infallibility of somebody, or the cracks in the armor, I think is what's important.
He's also kind of a bullshit artist, to a degree. There's that wonderful
Absolutely.
scene, I don't want to give anything away, where your wife catches you staring inside the room, and you turn around, you're caught, and you make this kind of silly face, and then you immediately start justifying it.
Absolutely,
with BS.
absolutely, and actually attack her. I mean, there's plenty of misogynists around at the moment who are also bullshit artists, as we know. So, I think the two go hand in hand.
Was that a way, though, that you found to sort of make him three-dimensional? Was to sort of focus on those moments where you could sort of showcase him as a bullshit artist?
Well, absolutely. It's to find where he's vulnerable. It's to find the weakness and see what he does about it. To see, and it's not, and I think if you're playing a character that you want liked, then you have to find the humility in that character. A character like this has no humility. He has vulnerability, and when he is tripped up, the way in which, to present the tripping up, even if it's just in a subtle moment where you see the character lose themselves for a second, but then come back with something even more domineering, is indicator enough that okay, this guy he's on tender footing, even if he won't admit it himself.
Very similar to a person that I'm thinking
Somebody
of.
else.
Yeah, very similar to somebody else we're not talking about. This is you've been in a few Westerns. What attracts you to the genre? Or do you find that it's sort of creators of Westerns are attracted to putting you in them?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm interested in human psychology, and whether that's set in space or whether it's set in a city or whether it's set out in the desert or whatever, it doesn't really matter to me, to be honest. I'm much more interested in the dynamic and the dynamics between characters and their behaviour. The environment obviously has a part to play in that, I think. It either raises the stakes or it changes the stakes, or it kind of takes us as an audience into a world that maybe makes us feel a little unsafe or unfamiliar, or really familiar. Sometimes it's interesting to do something that's set in a world that seems perfectly safe, seems perfectly normal. Any of us could relate to it, and yet if something's amiss or something goes wrong for a character, or somebody's forced to deal with something that they wouldn't normally deal with, then our audience hopefully can relate to that. I think when you do something set in another time period and set in another location, it just can add. It depends how it's done and how it's treated, but it can just add to the storytelling sort of notion of it. That people did live like this in this other time and in this other world, but at the same time they're human beings just like us in today. We feel scared of people, we feel reliant on other people, we feel loved and we want to love, and so all of the human
bullshit
emotion,
leaders justifying all their misogynist things.
exactly, all of that. So I just think that human nature, human behaviour, psychology, that's the stuff I'm interested in. And whether it's as a 50s cop or a 90s drag queen or an 1800s Dutch Reverend, it doesn't really matter to me in a way. It's just about how something's written and how it's presented and realised.
Was this an exhausting part to play? As sort of easy as a question as that is, I mean, you are tense the whole movie, not just when you're giving sermons, not just when you're sort of freaking out or hurting someone. You are physically, it looks like you are physically flexing in every scene that you're in.
And action.
Give me dinner!
That's right. Cut, I'm going to explode. Yeah, it was exhausting. I'm always exhausted at the end of every day, to be honest, on some level. I think because you're carrying something, you know, you're carrying a sort of a whole other life in your head and in your body. And so when you get to the end of every day, I find myself get home and I just sort of stare at a wall first for sort of half an hour going, oh, okay. So yeah, it was exhausting as well, because it's pretty heavy stuff that we're sort of dealing with, you know. But at the same time, there's room for us to muck around on set and laugh and take the mickey out of things, and you know, have a bit of a joke.
Sorry, I'm just imagining the outtakes to Brimstone.
Yeah, well, there were some pretty funny moments.
You holding a whip and being like, I'm sorry, hold on
That's
a
right.
second.
Crackety crack. That's right. And funnily enough, I think on the more harrowing stories the more harrowing the story, the more sort of mischief you get up to.
People are just sort of naturally looking for that outlet.
Well, funnily enough, I just finished a film on Monday. They're still filming, but I just worked with Paul Rudd and Paul Giamatti on a film in Prague called The Catcher Was a Spy. And it's a serious story. It's a World War II spy drama, and it's very serious. But I mean, clearly because it was Paul Rudd and Paul Giamatti, I was rolling around on the floor laughing all the day. I was going, hang on, we're supposed to be killing Nazis. I'm supposed to be serious, you know. So I think the more serious the story, the more you muck around, you know.
I want to ask you about another project that you have going on right now, which is the miniseries on ABC, When We Rise. The amazing story of Cleve Jones, and obviously the miniseries. I have not read his memoir, but the miniseries does a wonderful job of making it not just about Cleve, but about, you know, a lot of threads that are about the movement from the 70s up until now. Did you meet with Cleve? Did you talk to him about the project? What was it like? He's a very inspiring figure.
Yes. No, well, Cleve was there on set with us a lot of the time, as were Roma Guy and Dion and Ken Jones. You know, the four main characters that we portray in the story were there with us a lot, which is... It's wonderfully inspiring on one level. It's also nerve-wracking on another, as you're sort of filming something that's particularly moving and sad. And I mean, there's a scene where I tell my parents about how myself and my boyfriend met and fell in love, and it's a really confronting moment at the dinner table. And Cleve was behind the monitor crying his eyes out, you know. So because he remembers, it makes me want to cry thinking about it, because he is taken back to that. And obviously he and Dustin Lance Black know each other very well. They've worked together in the past on Milk, and you know, they've spent a lot of time together. And so I think Lance did a really beautiful job of recreating or delving into the Cleve's world. And so yes, as I say, Cleve is taken back through his history there in front of him, which, you know, as I say, is pretty inspiring. You know, it's always fascinating playing a real person, somebody who has existed. Quite often it's somebody who passed away years ago, but in this case, you know, there he is still with us. And you know, it's pretty amazing really what he's been through, that he's still with us.
Did he give you any sort of pointers on how you should play him? I mean, Emil Hirsch played him in Milk. And
He did say to me a few times, not so gay, not so gay.
I had heard...
Don't make him camp, don't make him camp. I'm like, really? Okay.
I had heard an interview with him where he'd said that he had given Emil Hirsch the same directions.
Cleve, you know, Cleve's a, you know, he wants to be known as a cool, kind of tough guy, and he is. I mean, the thing is, he is. Yeah, but no, he wasn't. You know, he wasn't directive about performance, but he's very aware that even just in the times that you spend with him. And there's plenty of footage of Cleve as well. There's plenty of footage of him giving speeches and at rallies and talks in front of people that, you know, unless you're way off the mark, Cleve's just, he feels honoured that his story's being told. So I think he seemed happy with what I was doing.
What was it like when that project was brought to you and you were told you were going to get the chance to play Cleve Jones? Is that something where you suddenly feel responsible? Does it feel like a lot of pressure? Or do you, as an actor who've portrayed other people before, maybe living people, know how to put that out of your head and just immediately focus on the sort of task at hand?
No, it's a bit of both. You do feel a sense of responsibility. I mean, you feel a sense of responsibility anyway when you play any character. But if it's a character like this that really hasn't existed in real life, you sort of take it and you own it, and you just feel very confident about owning it. When it's somebody who has existed and still does exist and is there sitting in front of you at a dinner table, you can't help but feel nervous about getting it right. You know, you really don't want to get it wrong as such. And I'm clearly not impersonating Cleve perfectly. But I think he, as I say, was so kind of open about the fact that he was honoured that this was being done, that gave me permission to find the Cleve that worked for me. You know, that as long as the intent and the heart and the values and all of those things that Cleve believes and represents himself, as long as that stuff is there, then whether or not certain performance things might be varied, kind of, you know, I don't want to speak on Cleve's behalf, but not that they don't matter, but that you can feel okay about finding the version of the character that is right for you. Because, you know, a certain actor might play Cleve one way and I might play Cleve another way, just because of the nature of the tone of my voice or the way I articulate things, etc. So it's always going to be different.
What's it like, you know, I don't want to focus on the current national situation in this country too much. We were ragging on it before. Oh, do you really?
Oh, yeah.
Let's fucking do it, because I can do it for hours.
As an outsider, I really, really need to keep my mouth shut, because I'll be...
You're not an outsider. You've been here long enough. You can jump in.
Yeah, but I'm always going to be an Australian who's not allowed to vote in your country.
Okay, you can't vote here?
No.
Get the fuck out. No, sorry, I just can't. But what was it like?
I think, though, considering voting is not compulsory in this country, then outsiders should be allowed to vote. The president of your country has a real effect on the rest of the world, so we should be allowed to have a say in that, don't you think?
Please, if anyone knows...
I take that back. Sorry if I've offended anybody.
No, so I'm curious, you know, you're making When We Rise. You guys were probably shooting it last year, right? I think I talked to somebody else who's involved in the project. It was shot
It was like May, June.
May, June. It was made fairly quickly in terms of shooting and editing and getting it to TV. I mean, you're in the midst of shooting this thing about all of the progress that was fought for and made in the LGBTQ movement. And we're now at this moment where, sure, Trump says he doesn't want to roll anything back. We're already seeing he's kind of doing it when it comes to transgender bathroom rights. But we have a vice president who believes in gay conversion therapy, or at least at one time did. What is it like for you, just emotionally, to dedicate your time to telling these stories that clearly you believe in, progress that you believe in, when it seems like, you know, one of the major networks in this country is putting this on? So people believe in this progress, but we have elected someone who clearly doesn't.
I guess all you can do is just keep saying what you believe, keep doing what you believe, keep making things like this. I mean, you can feel frustrated, obviously, by the walls and the barriers that come up. I mean, I certainly haven't had to face what Cleve and the people that he knew through that time have had to face, you know, real life and death situations. I haven't had to face that. So the little bit of frustration I might feel now, perhaps with the administration or some of the beliefs that have been expressed, is one thing. But I think about the hurdles and the battles and the fights that they've been through year after year after year, and the fact that they just keep going and they're tenacious and that they just don't give up. That's what I would focus on. For me personally, I would think, just keep on. You can't give up. You can't give up. You know, you've really got to fight for people's rights. And so, yes, I can see the frustration, and I would hope that minds can be changed, you know, within the administration. If some people are believing that, you know, things do need to go back the way that they were, then, you know, you just keep trying to express the story and express what is right, you know.
Well, you did a wonderful job on the show. I commend you for your performance and working on it.
Thank you.
Let's ask you guys for questions. Who has right here. You have a microphone, sir.
First of all, Mr. Pearce, thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
And we also share something. Your name is Guy and my name is Guy.
Whoa.
It's a rare name in America.
Yes, it is.
It is. I have people say to me, "That's not a name, that's what you are." I go, well, it is a name as well, so.
Okay.
G'day, Guy.
I've got a question. What actor or actress, the whole time you've been acting, has been a major influence in your career?
Thank you for your question. There's a few. Guy. Brando is one. I know he's touted a lot, but he really is somebody who I come back to quite often. And recently I watched Streetcar Named Desire again, and there's a raw honesty in his performances that I just am always searching for myself, I suppose. I'm a big fan of Gary Oldman, Edward Norton, Al Pacino, Meryl Streep, obviously. So there are a number of actors who I'm always incredibly moved by. But I think when I was a kid and I personally discovered Marlon Brando myself and exposed him to the rest of the world.
Brando's also one of those things, though, that as an actor, you love him, but then you look at the later periods and you're like, oh, don't want to go too far with this thing.
No, absolutely. But that's what's fascinating about Brando, I think, is, that's his attitude about the industry. And, so that's one thing. But he can't help but be good, though. Even as silly as it got, even through the 60s, as early as the 60s, he can't help but be amazing. So
Talk about a movie like Island of Dr. Moreau, which is like, that is
just hilarious.
He is great in that movie, but apparently he had an earpiece in and his assistant was reading his lines
Not
to
just
him
in
from
that
his
movie,
trailer.
he had an earpiece in his ear for a number of years. Yeah. But I think for a lot of actors that works because I think that works for a lot of actors because they don't want to learn lines, they want to keep it really spontaneous. So I get that. I'd be a little bit like, hang on, what? Keep rolling. Hang on. Did you say he does that now? Hold on. So,
But apparently he was doing that he would do something like that. That was a wonderful,
you're reading the wrong scene. It's another scene.
That was a wonderful Brimstone-ish justification for his behavior.
yeah, that's right. I had an earpiece in and I was in the wrong movie.
Next question, right here.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, good, thank you. Your name's not Guy, is it?
It's not.
No.
It's Michelle.
Just wanted to check.
And that's so funny. I was actually just talking to someone about Marlon Brando yesterday, and we were talking about the earpiece in the island of
Dr.
Moreau,
Moreau.
right? It's crazy.
Which they
but
filmed
he
in
has
Australia.
It's so, right, I forgot.
And
But
apparently, before your question, another thing about Dr. Moreau, the little person that he brought on set was his idea.
Yeah.
He met him on the island and was like, "You're gonna write a part for this guy. We're gonna do a piano."
He pretty much did what he wanted.
he did.
There's a wonderful documentary about the making of Island of Dr. Moreau that's on
Yes.
YouTube that is just
Well, the original director who got kicked off the movie ended up... We'll come back to your question in a second,
sure.
Guy.
No.
Hang on a second. The original director who got kicked off the movie ended up going into the jungle, disappearing into the jungle, and came back as an extra, as one of the creatures. So he's there, without the producers knowing. So it's
for like
it's
weeks
fascinating.
too, right?
Yeah.
Go watch it. It's the best.
It's like he wanted the sunscreen on. That was like all his idea.
Yeah, I think he came out of the dressing room each day going, this is what I'll wear today, and they go, roll camera.
Sorry, I'll ask my question
Yes,
now.
go on.
I was wondering what attracts you to the roles you pick, and what makes you pick the roles that you do?
Well, it's a couple of different things, and I think it changes all the time. I mean, I have to feel like I'm doing something I haven't done before, even though I'm sure there are characters that are similar to what I've done before. But it could just be the combination of the director, the story, the way in which the script is written. But I have to really, as I read it, I have to feel like I'm taken there and that I could almost step into doing the characters straight away. If I feel like I have to work too hard at trying to understand the character and I don't really get it and I have to do all this homework to put it all together and I have to talk to the director way too much to really kind of piece it all together, then I feel like I don't have the impulse to do it. But if you read a really great book and you're completely taken to that place and it stays with you, that feeling that you have is the same feeling that I have that makes me go, oh, I really want this, Let's hope Brad doesn't want it.
Impulse is such an interesting word when it comes to acting, right? Because I think that's exactly right. If the actor has to think about it too much or ask too many questions, the impulse isn't there, and then there's an immediate sort of self-consciousness about how false the performance might come
Yeah,
off.
that's right. I mean, and I think the skill in being an actor, probably in most art forms, I'm not sure, but I think the skill is finding the balance because you don't forget that there's a camera there all the time. So your brain is telling you that you're making a movie, but a big part of your physiology or your psychology and your imagination is taken into the character that you're playing. And so to balance those two things, to balance the intellectual part of the process as well as the character that you're believing in, if that's a good balance, then great. I can do it and we're off and running. But if it's too much of one, and as you say, I'm having to sort of work too much at piecing it together, then it becomes too constructed, and I realise that I'm sort of not doing it by the numbers, but it just doesn't feel authentic. And I think if I don't feel like it's authentic, then it probably won't come across as authentic. I think.
For like a bad couple months of making something.
Yeah, and you guys are going to see something and go, what the hell was he thinking? Why did he do this?
I can't think of one role where I feel that way about you. Next question.
Hey, Guy. So between doing projects like this and the big budget movies that you've been doing, like, how do you find time to actually be able to do, these kind of films? And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you what your favorite Western is.
Can I say, you may think this is a low budget movie. This looks like a very big budget Western. It's beautiful and as epic as any Western I've seen. It does not look like a low budget movie at all. But go ahead.
No, I mean, I don't know how I find the time for things. And I've just had a baby as well, like 6 months ago. So I'm needing to find the time to be a new dad. Just to clarify, I didn't actually have the baby. My girlfriend had the baby, and I watched. And but we have a new baby, and so finding the time to balance everything is tricky. But I think one of the important things that I realised years ago was, once I started working in the States in the mid-90s or late to 90s, and the opportunities sort of came and I did one film after another, after another, after another, I then realised that actually I was getting a bit burnt out, and what was important was to take time off in between jobs, because you realise how valuable that time is that you have at home, being yourself, sort of regrouping, recharging your batteries, so that you can then read something and quite clearly then go, this is the thing I want to do next. So it is about balance, I suppose. It's about sort of really trying to find the time to look after yourself as much as then be inspired enough to sort of go off and do another job. And it's tricky, and sometimes you go, well, I really want to have a break now, but this opportunity, Scorsese's hassling me again for something. And I've said no to him 4 times, so I better say yes this time. It's never actually happened. I'm still waiting for him to call me. What's my favourite Western? I don't know. Funnily enough, I actually haven't watched that many Westerns. I remember Unforgiven, the Clint Eastwood film. That was pretty brutal. That was pretty good.
Did you have that thing with your girlfriend who just had a baby? I had a few friends recently whose partners had children, and they had, not that they didn't respect and love their partners before, but this newfound unbelievable. I was on the phone with them. I was like, women are saints, man. You'll see. They're unbelievable what they go through. It's incredible. And that was like all they talked about for like the last month and a half, 2 months of the pregnancy. Did you have that?
Yeah, I mean, to watch, I don't know if you know, Carice, my girlfriend, is in Game of Thrones. She plays Melisandre in Game of Thrones, so she's herself a very busy and well-known actress. The respect I have for her and all women, not just for being able to give birth, but for, doing all the things that women can do. But to watch a woman go through pregnancy and not just give birth, but to be a new mother, to watch a new mother her child is the most inspiring thing, I have to say. It's really moving. So as much as I'm falling in love with my child myself, to watch them fall in love with each other is pretty fascinating.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Guy, I got to let you go. How can people see Brimstone?
They can't. It's never coming out. That was it. That's it right there.
That was solely a conversation for us. That was not...
Well, it's out in cinemas.
Yeah.
And various other forms.
All right, Guy Pearce, everybody. Go see Brimstone.